Hello guys, John here. In this video I will recap a Korean movie series titled Squid Game which was released in 2021. This movie tells the story of a survival game with a prize money of 45.6 billion won for anyone who can survive until the last round. There are 456 players who come from various regions in Korea and each has a considerable debt. Therefore, in that game they are willing to do anything in order to survive and get the prize. Without a lot of spoilers at the beginning, let's get into the movie. The movie begins with a widower named Gi-hun. He works odd jobs and becomes a burden to his elderly mother. His wife left him and married another man. Even custody of their only daughter also falls to the wife who is now living happily with her new family. With all the misadventures in his life, Gi-hun tries to be a good father on his daughter's birthday. He desperately took his mother's money to be doubled in a gambling. Luckily, he managed to win gambling and earned quite a lot of money. However, once out of the gambling arena he was immediately pursued by loan sharks who wanted to collect debts on Gi-hun. Seeing a swarm of loan sharks, Gi-hun immediately ran away to save all his money. Unfortunately, he was caught. He tried to negotiate and will pay half of his debt with the result of his victory today. But when he checked his money it turned out that all the money had been lost. So during the previous pursuit process Gi-hun had hit a girl who turned out to have stolen all her money. Unable to pay the debt, the loan sharks told Gi-hun to sign a contract that said that if Gi-hun could not pay his debts in the near future then his organs would be taken and sold by them. All the misfortunes in his life make Gi-hun frustrated because on his daughter's birthday he cannot buy good food and birthday gifts. He felt he had failed to be a good father to his daughter. Now, in his life all that is left is misfortune and debt that he will not be able to pay. When he felt there was no hope anymore Gi-hun got a glimmer of hope. At that time a young man gave him a ticket to a game. The young man said that if Gi-hun managed to finish the game there then he would earn a lot of money. Hearing that, Gi-hun was immediately interested and followed what the young man said. Long story short, Gi-hun and others who fared the same as his was taken in a car. They were drugged to maintain the secrecy of the game venue. In addition, all mobile phones and items they brought were also confiscated and will be returned later when they return home. There were 456 participants gathered in a large room. The game venue was managed by a mysterious black masked person named the frontman. And also the entire committee wearing all red clothes. They are so secretive that everything, even their identities should not be known by anyone. At that place, Gi-hun met several other participants. Among them is Sang-woo childhood friend Gi-hun, Il-nam, and a Lucius grandfather, a foreign worker named Ali, a gangster named Dak-soo, a woman named Mi Ryong, and a North Korean girl named Se-byuk. Se-byuk is the girl who previously stole all of Gi-hun money. So when he saw it, Gi-hun became very angry. But they have not had time to avenge. The organizers came to their room. Then the committee explained that while there they would play 6 games. As for some rules that must be approved by the players before starting the game. The player must not stop in the middle of the game and the player who refuses to play will be immediately eliminated and the last game will be stopped if the majority of participants agree to it. After agreeing to all the terms, the participants were directed to a different room to start the first game. The first game they will play is a green light red light. There is a giant robot that will serve as a guard. When the robot says the green light the players are allowed to move as fast as possible so they can get to the finish line before the time is up. But when the robot says a red light, then the player should not move at all, because if caught by the robot then they will be immediately eliminated. It's pretty simple. But the real reality is much more horrifying. How not? the intention of being eliminated from the game is not just expelled but shot to death. Bullets come from various angles, all of which have been arranged to directly shoot anyone who moves during a red light. Because of this, the participants were surprised and began to scatter in the game arena. Unfortunately, the act was not to help them but rather made them all die in vain. Gi-hun and the few remaining players were forced to finish the game, although they had to see hundreds of bodies lying unmanageable around them. They must stay concentrated in order to get to the finish line safely and not run out of time. Those who have crossed the finish line before time runs out will be declared to have qualified from the first game and have the right to advance to the next game. Gi-hun, who had previously been left behind, tried to run as tight as possible in the final seconds. Unfortunately, he slipped and almost fell. Fortunately, Ali, who was behind Gi-hun, managed to pull his shirt so that he could survive and finally escape the first game. While those who are still left because they run out of time are immediately eliminated by being shot one by one until there is nothing left. After completing the first game, the participants were again gathered in their rooms. Of the 456 participants, there are now only 201 participants left. The remaining participants were very frightened because of what happened in the first game. In the end, they all agreed to quit the game by voting. Before voting, the committee reminded them that now the prizes collected have reached more than 20 billion. This is accumulated by the number of participants who have died. And if they choose to quit this game, then they will be sent home without bringing a penny. It certainly makes them all falter, but in the end, with a margin of 1 vote only, they agreed to quit the game. After the agreement, the participants were finally repatriated back to their respective regions. The next day, Gi-hun decides to go to the police station to report the deadly game syndicate. He also told of all the incident from the beginning they were brought until they were sent home again. The police, who heard all the stories, could only laugh. Then Gi-hun gave him the game ticket he had previously gotten from a young man. There was a phone number that could be reached, but when the police tried to confirm the number, it was just an ordinary woman. It also makes the police angry with Gi-hun and thinks Gi-hun is crazy. Shortly thereafter, a policeman named Junho had just arrived at the police station. Somehow he seemed interested in the game tickets brought by Gi-hun. He even asked Gi-hun's identity to the policeman who listened to Gi-hun's story earlier. Junho seemed to know something strange about the game. Unexpectedly, he also had the exact same ticket as Gi-hun. The ticket belonged to her long-lost brother. Junho also felt that his brother must be at the game. On the other hand, Gi-hun, who had just returned home, looked confused looking for his mother. It turns out that his mother is currently being treated in hospital for acute diabetes. Even the doctor advised his mother to immediately perform surgery. But the mother chose to go home because she could not afford the medical expenses at the hospital. It also makes Gi-hun sad and disappointed in himself. He even desperately borrowed money from his ex-wife in order to pay for his mother's medical expenses. But what he got was precisely insults from his ex-wife's new husband, who even forbade him to approach his own biological daughter. That of course made Gi-hun very angry and immediately beat the man. Now, Gi-hun realizes that what the game organizers say is true, that the outside world is much more cruel than what happens in the arena. They will still be chased by debt and die at the hands of loan sharks. All the harsh realities of the world also make Gi-hun and others interested in returning to the game arena. In the evening, they all gathered and were picked up like when they first participated. But now what is different is that they can prepare more because they already know what will happen in the game. From the other direction, Junho also broke into the car, this time determined to get into the game arena in order to find his missing brother. He beat up a committeeman and took the committee's costume so he could disguise himself without anyone knowing. As usual, the participants were again gathered in a large room, but unexpectedly some of them this time came with preparations that bring a weapon or small items that they needed. From the initial 201 participants, there are now 187 people who decided to return to participate, which means the prize is also increasing. At the same time, Junho, who is confused, also now must disguise as a committee in the arena of the game. In the evening, Se-byuk, who was carrying a small knife, went to the toilet and tried to infiltrate through the vent with the help of Mi Ryong. He managed to get into the vent and see what was happening in the other room. There he saw the organizers cooking a very large amount of sugar. But he didn't know what to do with all the sugar. The next day, the participants prepared and gathered to play the second game. Before starting the game, Sang-woo asked Se-byuk about what he saw last night. He also said that this game must have been his childhood game. Se-byuk from North Korea will definitely have a hard time playing this game. Therefore, she also told if she saw the organizers make candy. After hearing that, Sang-woo immediately remembered his childhood game, a game with melted sugar and different shapes. And it turns out that his guess is correct. Their task in this game is to scrape the sugar according to its shape, which is why Sang-woo deliberately took the triangular shape, because the triangular shape is the easiest shape. But strangely enough, Sang-woo didn't tell his closest friends about it and instead let them choose a difficult shape. For example, Gi-hun took the form of an umbrella, and Il-nam took the form of a star. Participants have 10 minutes to complete the game this time. For participants who fail to create a suitable shape, they will be immediately eliminated. Of course, it also made the other participants panic and get more frightened. They all try as hard as possible to get the desired pattern. Then it is seen Mi Ryong, who uses his match to heat the needle so that candy can be easier to melt. Participants who take easy forms one by one begin to successfully complete missions safely. But the problem is the participants who take difficult forms. Moreover, they were also being pursued by less and less time. While the game was in progress, Junho began to be suspected by other organizers because Junho looked like a confused person and seemed to not know his duties in that place. At the last minute, Gi-hun had an idea so that he could complete the mission quickly. Back then, he saw that their candy already had a pattern. So all they have to do is lick the candy until it can be separated from the pattern. It is the fastest way they can do right now if they want to survive. The participants who saw it immediately followed the trick. Unexpectedly, it was also very helpful for them so that some participants including Gi-hun and Il-nam managed to complete the mission safely. But there was a participant who unsuccessfully tried to fight a committee. Therefore, the other organizers immediately shot other participants so that they did not have a chance to fight. The participant pointed a gun at the committee and asked him to remove the mask. But as soon as the organizer removed his mask, the committee was immediately shot by the frontman. So, all the organizers there have had an agreement that they be prohibited from unmasking or their identities inside the game arena, except when they are in the room and alone. This is done to maintain all the secrecy of the game, and Squid Game Part 1 is completed. Who exactly made this horrible game? And what will happen to Gi-hun and the others? Surely the story will be even more exciting. See you in second part, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support this channel. Thank you for watching this video until the end, and see you in the next video.